You became something heaven loves to watch, a soul brave enough to move without permission. When you stopped asking the world for approval and started listening to your inner knowing, the spiritual realm leaned in closer. You weren't rejecting God. You were finally trusting the voice He placed inside you. And that kind of trust makes the universe respond in ways that logic can't explain. Every door that closed after you stepped away from what felt wrong wasn't punishment, it was protection. Some paths were never meant to carry the weight of your destiny. Some people were only meant to walk with you for a season. When you chose yourself, heaven rearranged everything behind the scenes to meet you where you were brave enough to stand. This is why your life didn't collapse, it transformed. What felt like chaos was actually divine recalibration. You may have lost comfort, stability, or approval, but you gained alignment. And alignment is more powerful than any plan written by fear. If this is speaking to your soul, comment, "I trust the path," so others know they're not alone in this awakening. Have you noticed how once you stepped out of the old version of your life, strange blessings started finding you, unexpected opportunities, random help, perfect timing? That wasn't coincidence, that was heaven responding to your courage. You didn't step outside God's plan, you stepped into the higher version of it. And if you're watching this on Mirror of the Soul, you're here for a reason. This channel exists to remind you that your spirit always knows before your mind does. So make sure to subscribe and stay connected, because messages like this don't find ordinary people, they find awakened ones. You were never meant to shrink to fit someone else's expectations. When you finally said no to what drained you and yes to what lit you up, something divine happened. God doesn't reward obedience to fear, He rewards obedience to truth. And the truth inside you is louder than any rule ever written by society. You choosing yourself wasn't selfish, it was sacred. You honored the spark God placed in you. You honored the calling that wouldn't let you stay small. And when you did that, the universe shifted in your favor. That's why things started lining up when you least expected them to. Heaven loves when you step into who you really are. People might have called you reckless. They might have said you were making a mistake, but they didn't hear what you heard in your spirit. They didn't feel the divine pull guiding you forward. You were following something higher than logic. And if that feels familiar, hit like right now. It helps this message reach others who are quietly walking the same path. Have you ever wondered why peace found you even when everything around you was uncertain? That's because you were finally in alignment. When your soul is in the right place, chaos can't shake you. That's what happens when God smiles on your choices. Not every delay is denial. Not every wrong turn is a mistake. Some detours are holy. They move you away from what would have limited you and toward what will elevate you. When you walked away from what no longer felt right, you didn't get lost, you got redirected. That job you left, that relationship you outgrew, that version of you that couldn't survive anymore, those weren't failures. They were doorways. God doesn't build your destiny in straight lines. He builds it through experiences that shape your soul. That's why you're stronger now, more intuitive, more awake. The path you walked hardened your spirit and sharpened your vision. If you feel like life made you tougher instead of bitter, comment, "I was built for more." Have you noticed how the things that once scared you don't anymore? That's because you crossed a threshold. You're no longer living in survival, you're living in purpose. And purpose carries divine protection. Your soul outgrew the room before your mind understood it. You started feeling restless, disconnected, or dissatisfied, not because something was wrong with you, but because something greater was calling you. Comfort would have killed your becoming. God whispers before He shouts. He nudged you, then He stirred you, then He made staying unbearable. That wasn't cruelty, that was love. Some blessings only arrive when you're brave enough to move. Have you noticed how once you left, your energy changed? You felt lighter, clearer, more alive. That's alignment. And alignment is the greatest sign that you're exactly where you're supposed to be. You didn't rebel against God, you rebelled against limitation. You said no to fear, no to smallness, no to a life that didn't reflect your soul. And heaven honored that courage. Chosen ones are not obedient to systems, they are loyal to truth. That's why your life looks different. That's why people don't understand you. You're walking a path designed specifically for your spirit. What part of your old life did you have to release to become who you are today? Share it in the comments. Your story might heal someone else. This is only the beginning. If you're ready to continue this journey, stay connected to Mirror of the Soul because what's coming next will go even deeper. Once you chose alignment over approval, the universe quietly began adjusting everything around you. Situations that used to block you suddenly opened. People who once doubted you started watching you in disbelief. Not because you became lucky, but because you became congruent with who you truly are. And when a soul moves in truth, reality has no choice but to respond. This is why things started happening in strange ways. Unexpected money, random help, perfect timing. You weren't chasing blessings anymore, you were attracting them. God loves when you move without fear because fearless movement activates divine momentum. If you felt that invisible push lifting you lately, tap like so the algorithm spreads this message to others who are feeling it too. Have you noticed how life feels different now, even when it's still challenging? There's a quiet confidence in you that didn't exist before. You don't panic the way you used to. You don't beg for answers. You trust. That trust is magnetic. And this is exactly why Mirror of the Soul exists, to remind awakened people that they are not imagining this shift. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Not everyone can walk with someone who is becoming powerful. Some people only loved the version of you that was easy to control, easy to predict, easy to keep small. When you changed, their access to you disappeared. That loss wasn't tragic, it was necessary. God will remove people before they block your destiny. The isolation you felt wasn't abandonment, it was divine editing. The universe was clearing space for souls who could meet you at your new level. Have you noticed how your circle got smaller but your peace got bigger? That's not coincidence. That's evolution. If you've experienced this, comment, "I chose peace." Those who are meant to walk with the real you will find you again. The rest were just lessons. While others thought you were lost, heaven was upgrading you. Your mind, your intuition, your emotional strength, all of it was being refined. You didn't break down, you broke open. Every night you cried. Every moment you questioned everything. Every time you kept going even when no one clapped, that was spiritual training. God builds warriors in silence. Now look at you. You feel deeper, you see clearer, you stand stronger, and people can feel it even when you don't say a word. If you're feeling this shift like this, you're part of something powerful. There were moments you almost went back to the familiar pain, back to the safe suffering, but something inside you refused. That was your soul protecting your future. Growth feels lonely because you're walking where your old self can't survive. But you didn't come this far to turn into who you used to be. Have you noticed how what once tempted you doesn't anymore? That's because your frequency changed, and low-level realities can't hold high-level souls. Normal is predictable, normal is quiet, normal is safe. You were born to disrupt, to awaken, to transform. That's why your life never followed a straight line. You carry a different fire, a deeper knowing, a destiny that doesn't fit inside boxes. What makes you different? Write it in the comments. Let the world see your light. This journey continues on Mirror of the Soul, and what's ahead will reveal even more of who you truly are. At some point, you started to feel it, a quiet presence walking with you through everything, even in confusion, even in pain. Something was guiding you when you couldn't see the road ahead. That wasn't imagination. That was divine intelligence responding to your courage. When you stepped away from the old life, heaven stepped closer. You didn't have all the answers, but you kept moving. And every time you did, something unseen made sure you didn't fall too far. That's why you survived what should have broken you. That's why you always landed on your feet. If you've ever felt protected in moments that made no sense, tap like and honor that unseen help. There's a reason you feel watched over. There's a reason things keep working out just enough to keep you going. You are not alone on this path, you are accompanied. Have you ever looked back and realized something impossible had to happen for you to still be here? That's not luck. That's divine intervention. Pain was never meant to destroy you. It was meant to wake you up. Every heartbreak, betrayal, and disappointment was chiseling you into who you are now. God doesn't waste suffering when the soul is ready to grow. You learned discernment. You learned boundaries. You learned self-worth. Those lessons didn't come softly because your destiny is not small. If you've turned pain into wisdom, comment, "I am rising." Your past didn't weaken you, it forged you. There was a quiet moment in your life when something inside you shifted. You didn't hear a voice. You didn't see a sign in the sky, but you felt it, a deep inner knowing that you were not walking alone anymore. Even when you were confused, exhausted, or uncertain, something was gently guiding your steps. That invisible presence wasn't random luck. It was divine alignment activating the moment you chose to walk in truth instead of fear. You survived things that should have ended you. You walked through emotional storms that would have crushed weaker souls. Somehow, doors kept opening just enough to keep you going. Money came when you needed it. Help appeared when you were ready to give up. People showed up at the exact moment you were losing hope. That is not coincidence, that is spiritual orchestration. God was smiling at your courage and quietly protecting your path. Think about the moments you almost quit, the nights you cried, the times you felt completely alone, and yet here you are, still standing, still breathing, still evolving. Something had to keep you alive. Something had to carry you through. If you feel that truth in your chest right now, hit like so others who feel it too can find this message. You didn't need to see angels to know they were near. You felt it in the calm that came after chaos. You felt it in the strange peace that made no logical sense. You felt it in the way life kept nudging you forward when you wanted to collapse. That was guidance. That was divine companionship. Your past didn't hurt you because you were weak, it hurt because you were being shaped. Every betrayal, every rejection, every loss was carving strength into your spirit. God doesn't prepare chosen ones gently. He prepares them thoroughly. You weren't being punished, you were being refined. Each painful experience taught you something powerful. You learned when to walk away. You learned how to stand alone. You learned how to read energy. You learned that not everyone deserves access to your heart. Those lessons couldn't have been learned in comfort. They had to be earned through fire. Have you noticed how things that once destroyed you now barely touch you? That's because pain upgraded you. You see through illusions now. You feel lies before they are spoken. You protect your peace like a sacred temple. That is not trauma, that is wisdom. There was a time when you tried so hard to make people understand you. You explained your choices. You defended your path. You tried to justify your growth. And then one day, something changed. You realized you didn't owe anyone an explanation for becoming who you were meant to be. That was the moment you stepped into true power. You stopped arguing with people who couldn't see you. You stopped shrinking for people who were uncomfortable with your light. You started walking quietly, confidently, and unapologetically. People who are meant to understand you will feel you. The rest were never supposed to get it. That's not arrogance, that's spiritual maturity. Have you felt that shift? When silence became stronger than argument, when peace became more valuable than approval, that's awakening. Fear still whispers, but it no longer controls you. You feel it, acknowledge it, and move anyway. That's courage. That's spiritual strength. That's the sign of a soul that knows it is protected. You no longer need guarantees to take steps. You trust your inner guidance. You trust that the universe is supporting you, and that trust is what allows miracles to happen. Have you noticed how you're no longer paralyzed by uncertainty? You don't need to see the whole road, you only need the next step. and you take it. You were never designed to blend in. Your presence changes energy. Your words move people. Your story inspires. Even when you don't try, you leave an impact. That's leadership not by force but by frequency. People watch you, they learn from you, they feel something when you speak. That's because your soul carries authority. What have you learned from everything you've survived? Share it in the comments. Your truth may heal someone who is still in the dark. This is what Mirror of the Soul stands for: awakening, strength, and spiritual truth. There is something most people never understand about God. He has a sense of humor. Not mockery, not cruelty, but cosmic humor. The kind that smiles when a soul chooses courage over conditioning. When you stepped outside what everyone else called the plan, heaven didn't panic. Heaven laughed in delight because you surprised even the universe with how bold your spirit was becoming. You thought you were messing everything up. You thought you were making mistakes. But in the unseen realm, every so-called wrong turn was opening doors you never could have accessed from the safe road. God wasn't shaking his head. He was smiling because you trusted the inner voice more than the outer noise. Have you noticed how the things you were afraid to do became the very things that set you free? That is divine humor at work. The universe loves when a soul breaks out of fear and into truth. Once you aligned with your real self, life stopped feeling like a constant fight. Not because it became easy, but because it became meaningful. Even challenges started carrying hidden blessings. You could feel it. Things were happening for you, not to you. Opportunities began appearing where there were once walls. People who could help you found you. Ideas started flowing. You weren't forcing anything, you were attracting everything. This is what happens when heaven recognizes a soul that is walking in truth. Support becomes invisible but undeniable. Your destiny is too big for a predictable path. If you had stayed where you were, you would have lived a smaller version of yourself. You had to leave. You had to lose. You had to walk alone for a while. There are parts of you that could only be activated through hardship. Strength, discernment, intuition, power, those don't come from comfort. Your life didn't go off track. It went off script so something greater could be written. What did you have to walk away from to become who you are now? Write it in the comments. Not everyone is strong enough to wake up. Not everyone is brave enough to change. Not everyone is willing to lose everything to find themselves. You were. That's why your life was intense. That's why you felt different. That's why you couldn't stay asleep like others. Chosen ones don't get easy lives. They get meaningful ones. If this feels like your story, subscribe to Mirror of the Soul and walk this path with us. You were never broken. You were never wrong. You were never behind. You were becoming. Every step, every detour, every painful goodbye was shaping the person you are now. And this version of you is powerful, aware, and aligned. So ask yourself, would you go back if you could? If this message touched your soul, like, share, and comment your truth below. Your story matters. This is Mirror of the Soul, where awakening finds you.